The stars outside the window looked cold and distant. Captain Mark Miller stood in front of the large glass window on the spaceship. He was a tall man with short hair and a serious face. He wore a simple blue uniform that had the word Earth written on the chest. His ship was named the Vanguard. It was the first ship from Earth to travel this far into space. They were near a big space station called Haven. Haven was not an Earth station. It belonged to the Galactic Council. This council was a group of many different alien races that controlled most of the galaxy. Humans were new to them. For a long time, the people of Earth looked at the stars and wondered if they were alone. Now they knew they were not. But knowing this did not make them feel safe. It made them feel small. Mark took a deep breath and let it out slowly. He turned his head to look at the man sitting at the computer desk. His name was David Kim. David was the tactical officer on the ship. He was younger than Mark, with dark eyes and quick fingers. He was looking at the screens that showed data about the station. "They are watching us, Captain," David said. His voice was quiet. "I know, David," Mark said. "I can feel it too." "It is strange," David continued. "They look at us like we are children, or maybe like animals in a zoo." Mark walked over to the desk and looked at the screen. It showed a video feed of the space station. There were many ships docked there. Some were round, some were long, and some looked like big insects. The aliens who built them were very advanced. They had traveled between the stars for thousands of years. Humans had only done it for 50 years. "Do not let it bother you," Mark said. He put a hand on David's shoulder. "We are here for a reason. We need to show them that we are strong." "I hope they listen," David said. Suddenly, the computer made a beeping sound. A red light flashed on the panel. David typed on the keyboard quickly. "We are receiving a message, Captain. It is coming from the station. It is the Overseer." "Put it on the main screen," Mark ordered. The big screen in the middle of the room changed. A face appeared. It was the face of an alien named Overseer Vex. He was a Valorian. Valorians looked like tall lizards that walked on two legs. They had green skin and large eyes. Vex did not look happy. The computer translated his alien language into English. The voice sounded robotic and flat. "Captain Miller of the Earth ship Vanguard," the computer voice said. "You are late. The Council is waiting for you." Mark stood up straight. "We had some engine problems, Overseer. We are here now." "Problems are a sign of weakness," Vex hissed. "You must dock at Port 4. Do not cause any trouble. The Council does not like trouble." "We are not here to cause trouble," Mark said calmly. "We are here to talk." "See that you do," Vex said. The screen went black. David looked at Mark. "He does not like us very much." "No, he does not," Mark agreed. "But that does not matter. We have a job to do." Mark walked back to the window. He looked at the huge space station again. It was beautiful in a scary way. It was made of metal and glass, floating in the dark nothingness of space. Lights flashed on and off on its surface. "Prepare the shuttle, David," Mark said. "I am going over to the station. I want you to stay here and monitor the systems." "Are you sure, Captain?" David asked. "It might be dangerous for you to go alone." "I will not be alone," Mark said. "I have you watching my back. And besides, I have you watching my back. And besides, if they wanted to kill us, they could have done it already." David nodded. "Yes, Captain. I will keep the scanners on." Mark left the room to get ready. He walked down the long hallway of the ship. The ship was quiet. The metal floors made a clanking sound under his heavy boots. He passed by the crew quarters. Some of the crew members were sitting in the common room. They looked nervous. Mark stopped to talk to them. "We are almost there," Mark told them. "Stay sharp. Keep your eyes open. We represent all of Earth today." The crew members nodded. "Yes, sir," one of them said. Mark went to his room to get his coat. It was a formal coat for meetings. He looked in the mirror. He looked tired, but his eyes were determined. He thought about Earth. He thought about the blue oceans and the green trees. He thought about the billions of people living there. They were all counting on him. The aliens wanted Earth to join their council, but on their terms. They wanted humans to follow their rules. They wanted humans to give up their weapons and their freedom. Mark did not want that. He knew that humans were not perfect. Humans had wars. Humans fought with each other. But humans were also strong. They were survivors. They had survived ice ages, diseases, and disasters. They had survived ice ages, diseases, and disasters. They had a fire inside them that the aliens did not understand. He left his room and went to the shuttle bay. The shuttle was a small ship that could carry a few people. It was used to travel between the big ship and the station. Mark climbed inside and strapped himself into the seat. The door closed and the engine started. "Shuttle ready for launch," the computer said. "Launch," Mark said. The shuttle moved out of the Vanguard. It flew slowly toward the big station. As he got closer, Mark could see how big the station really was. It was like a small city in space. There were windows everywhere, and small ships flying around it like flies. He guided the shuttle toward the docking port. The computer helped him line up the ship. It was a delicate operation. If he made a mistake, he could crash into the station. "Docking complete," the computer said. Mark stood up and grabbed his helmet. He did not need the helmet for air because the station had air, but he carried it for safety. He opened the door and walked out into the docking airlock. There were 2 aliens waiting for him. They were guards. They wore armor and held strange weapons. Mark put his hands up to show he was not holding a weapon. "I am Captain Mark Miller," he said. One of the guards stepped forward. "Follow me," the guard said in broken English. Mark followed the guard said in broken English. Mark followed the guard the hallways of the station. The walls were smooth and silver. The lights were bright. There were aliens walking everywhere. Mark saw creatures with 4 arms, creatures with heads like insects, and creatures that looked like floating jellyfish. They all stopped to look at him. He was the only human there. He felt like he did not belong. They reached a large door. The guard typed a code on the panel, and the door slid open. Inside was a large room. It was the observation deck. It had a huge window that looked out at the stars. In the middle of the room stood Overseer Vex. "Welcome to Haven," Vex said. He did not turn around to look at Mark. He kept looking out the window. "It is an impressive station," Mark said. "It is the center of civilization," Vex said. "Unlike your planet." Mark stayed calm. Earth has its own kind of civilization. Vex turned around finally. He looked at Mark with his yellow eyes. "Civilization requires order. Your planet has no order. You are chaotic. You fight. You kill. That is why we are here. We are going to save you from yourselves." Mark felt a spark of anger, but he kept it hidden. "We did not ask to be saved." "You do not have to ask," Vex said. "It is for your own good. The Council has prepared a treaty. You will sign it. You will join the Galactic Council. You will give up your military. You will stop exploring deep space. You will stay in your corner of the galaxy." Mark stepped closer to the alien. "And if we say no?" Vex smiled. It was not a nice smile. It showed many sharp teeth. "You cannot say no. We are many. You are few. We are strong. You are weak." Mark looked out the window. He saw the stars again. They looked so peaceful, but he knew that space was not peaceful. It was dark and dangerous. "We will see about that," Mark said softly. "Do not be foolish, human," Vex warned. "Go to your room. Rest. The meeting is tomorrow. I suggest you think carefully about your words. If you make us angry, you will not like the consequences." Mark nodded. "I will go to my room." Another guard led Mark away from Vex. They walked down more hallways until they reached a small room. It was a guest room. It had a bed, a table, and a chair. It was simple and clean. The guard locked the door behind Mark. Mark sat on the bed. He looked at the wall. He thought about what Vex had said. The aliens thought humans were weak. They thought humans were just another primitive race that needed to be controlled. They did not know the history of Earth. They did not know that humans never gave up. Mark touched the small communication device in his ear. It was hidden under his hair. "David," Mark whispered. "Can you hear me?" "I hear you, Captain." David's voice came through clearly. "Is everything okay?" "Yes," Mark said. "But tomorrow will be hard. They are arrogant, David. They think they own us." "What will you do?" David asked. Mark looked at the locked door. "I will tell them the truth." David asked. Mark looked at the locked door. "I will tell them that they are making a mistake." "Be careful, Captain." "I always am," Mark said. Mark lay down on the bed. He could not sleep. He stared at the ceiling. He knew that tomorrow was not just about a treaty. It was about the future of humanity. He had to be strong. He had to be strong. He had to be smart. But most of all, he had to make them understand. He had to make them see that Earth was not a planet to be conquered. Earth was a planet to be feared. The lights in the room dimmed automatically. Mark closed his eyes, but his mind was still racing. The silence of the room was loud. He was millions of miles from home, alone in a station full of aliens. But he did not feel afraid. He felt ready. The game had just begun. The morning came slowly on the space station. There was no sun to rise, only the lights in the room getting brighter. Captain Mark Miller woke up and sat on the edge of the bed. He rubbed his face with his hands. He had not slept well. The bed was too soft, and the room felt too quiet. He was used to the hum of the engines on his ship. Here, the air was still. He stood up and walked to the small window. Outside, he could see the docking area. His ship, the Vanguard, was floating in the distance. It looked small compared to the alien ships around it. Seeing it made him feel a little better. He washed his face and put on his uniform. He made sure it was clean and neat. Today was the most important day of his life. Today, he had to speak to the Galactic Council. He took a deep breath to calm his nerves. He touched the communication device in his ear again. "David, are you there?" he whispered. "I am here, Captain." The voice of David Kim replied immediately. "Did you sleep?" "A little," Mark said. "How is the ship?" "Everything is quiet here," David said. "The systems are green. But I am watching the scanners. Some of the alien ships are moving around. It looks like they are preparing for the meeting too." "Keep your eyes open," Mark said. "I have a feeling this will not be easy." "I will not let anything happen to you," David said firmly. "Thank you," Mark said. "Stand by." There was a knock at the door. Mark opened it. The same lizard-like guard from the day before was standing there. "Follow me," the guard said. Mark walked out into the hallway. The station was busier now. Aliens of all shapes and sizes walked past him. They did not look at him with curiosity anymore. They looked at him with cold eyes. They knew who he was. They knew he was the human representative. They walked for a long time until they reached a large set of doors. The doors were made of a dark, shiny metal. They opened slowly, revealing a huge circular room. This was the assembly hall. Mark stepped inside. The room was vast. In the center, there was a small floating platform. That was where he was supposed to stand. Around the room, high up near the ceiling, were many balconies. Each balcony had a podium for a different alien species. Mark walked to the center platform. It felt very exposed. He was alone in the middle of the room with hundreds of eyes looking down at him. He stood straight and kept his hands behind his back. He waited for the room to get quiet. Slowly, the talking stopped. The air smelled strange, like ozone and sweet flowers. It was the smell of many different alien creatures. A deep voice echoed through the room. It came from the main podium in the center. Overseer Vex was standing there. Next to him was a tall, thin woman with silver skin. She was an Alari, the most respected species in the council. "We are gathered here today to discuss the Earth," Vex said. His voice was loud and filled with pride. "The humans have finally left their solar system. They are like children stepping out of their front yard. They are confused and clumsy." Mark narrowed his eyes but did not speak. The Alari ambassador stepped forward. Her name was Lynn. She looked down at Mark with eyes that seemed to glow. "Captain Miller," she said. Her voice was soft, but it carried a lot of power. "We have watched your world for a long time. We have seen your wars. You fight over land. You fight over ideas. You hurt your own planet. You are a violent species." Mark looked up at her. "We have had our problems," Mark said, "but we are learning." "Learning is not enough," Ambassador Lin said. "The galaxy is a dangerous place. There are monsters in the dark. If you are left alone, you will destroy yourselves. Or worse, you will become a danger to us. Therefore, the Council has made a decision." She paused for effect. The room was silent. "We offer you the Standard Integration Treaty," Lin continued. "If you sign this treaty, Earth will become a protectorate of the Council. We will give you technology. We will give you medicine. We will protect you from the dangers of space. In return, you must obey our laws. You will stop building warships. You will stay within your own borders. You will let us control your communications." Mark listened carefully. It sounded like a prison sentence, not a gift. "And if we refuse?" Mark asked. Vex laughed. It was a dry, hissing sound. "Refuse? You are in no position to refuse. We are the greatest power in the galaxy. To refuse is to invite death." "Captain Miller," Lynn said, her voice sounding like she was talking to a child, "do not be stubborn. This is for your own good. Look at us. We live in peace. We have solved the problems that still plague your world. All you have to do is submit." Mark stepped closer to the edge of the platform. He looked around the room at all the different alien faces. They all looked the same. They all looked down on him. They thought they were better. They thought humans were just animals that needed to be put on a leash. "You call it peace," Mark said, his voice echoing slightly. "But I call it stagnation. You sit here in your comfortable chairs and tell us how to live. You think you know everything about us. You think you know history. We know enough," Bex snapped. "We know that you are too violent to be free." "That is where you are wrong," Mark said firmly. "We are not violent because we are crazy. We are violent because we survived. On Earth, we have faced ice ages that froze the world. We have faced plagues that killed millions. We have faced disasters that shook the ground. We fought each other, yes. But through that fighting, we became stronger. We became smarter. We became united." "United?" Vex laughed. Your world is divided into hundreds of countries, but we are one species, Mark shot back. And when we are pushed, we push back harder than you can imagine. Lynn shook her head sadly. This is exactly what we feared. You have too much aggression. It is a sickness. You need to be cured. Mark felt a flash of anger in his chest, but he pushed it down. He knew that getting angry would not help. He had to be smarter than them. He looked at Vex, then at Lynn. We will not sign the treaty, Mark said clearly. The room erupted in whispers. The aliens on the balcony started talking to each other. They were shocked. No one had ever refused the council before. Vex slammed his hand on the podium. Silence, he roared. The room went quiet again. He looked at Mark with pure hate. You dare to refuse us. Do you know what we are capable of? We could destroy your planet before you even knew we were there. You could try, Mark said. He did not blink. But Earth is not as defenseless as you think, and you are not as powerful as you believe. Do not threaten the council, Lynn said. She raised her hand. You are making a terrible mistake, Captain. If you walk out of this room without signing, you will be on your own. The council will not help you. If the darkness comes for you, you will scream for help, but we will not hear you. Mark looked at them. He saw the truth in their eyes. They were arrogant. They were so used to being the bosses that they could not imagine anyone defying them. They really thought they were doing humans a favor by controlling them. Mark remembered what the old generals on Earth used to say. The best way to defeat an enemy is to make them underestimate you. The Council underestimated Earth. They saw a small, divided planet. They did not see a burning fire waiting to explode. I appreciate the offer, Mark said, his voice polite but cold. But the answer is no. We will find our own way. We will make our own friends, and we will protect ourselves. This is madness, Vex said. He looked at the guards. Throw him out. He has wasted enough of our time. Wait, Lynn said. She looked at Mark one last time. You are walking away from safety, human. You are walking into the dark. I hope your people can forgive you when they die because of your pride. Mark looked her right in the eyes. I am not worried about my people, he said. I am worried about yours. What does that mean? Vex asked. Mark did not answer. He turned around and walked off the platform. He walked toward the exit doors with his head high. The whispers started again behind him, louder this time. He could feel their eyes on his back. They were confused. They were angry. But Mark did not care. He walked out of the assembly hall. The guard was waiting for him, but he did not take Mark back to his room. He just pointed down the hall toward the docking bay. Go, the guard said. Leave this station. Mark walked toward the shuttle. He felt heavy. The burden of the future was on his shoulders. But he also felt a strange sense of relief. The masks were off. The council had shown their true colors. They were bullies. David, Mark said into his earpiece. Captain, David sounded stressed. I saw the transmission. You refused them. The alien ships are powering up their weapons. They are angry. I know, Mark said. Get the Vanguard ready. We are leaving. Captain, look at the long-range scanner, David said. His voice sounded shaky. I am picking up something else. Something big. It just entered the system. Mark stopped walking. What is it? I do not know, David said. It is not a council ship. It is huge. Mark looked down the hallway toward the docking bay. He had a bad feeling, a very bad feeling. The aliens thought they were the kings of space, but they were wrong. Something else was coming. Something that did not care about treaties or borders. Mark hurried his pace. He needed to get back to his ship. The game had changed, and the real danger was just arriving. Mark ran down the long metal hallway. His boots hit the floor with loud thuds. He did not look at the aliens standing in the corridors. They looked at him with confusion and anger, but he ignored them. He only thought about his ship. The conversation with David in his ear repeated in his mind. Something big was coming. Something that the scanners did not recognize. He reached the docking bay door. The guard tried to stop him, but Mark pushed past. He jumped into the small shuttle and strapped himself into the seat. His hands moved fast over the controls. The door closed and the engines roared to life. "Launch now," Mark said to the computer. The shuttle shot away from the station. Mark flew with skill, dodging the traffic of other ships. He could see his ship, the Vanguard, floating in the dark. It looked beautiful to him. It was not as big as the alien ships, but it was strong. "David, prepare for my arrival," Mark said. "I am opening the bay doors, Captain," David replied. "But you need to see this. The object is getting closer. Show me on the screen," Mark said. The small screen in the shuttle flickered. An image appeared. At first, Mark thought it was a cloud of dust. It was black and looked like smoke. But it was not smoke. It was moving against the stars. It was blocking the light of the distant suns. It was massive. It was larger than the space station. It was larger than anything Mark had ever seen. "What is that?" Mark whispered. "I do not know," David said. "It is not solid like a rock. It is like shadow." Mark landed the shuttle inside the Vanguard. He did not wait for the pressure to balance completely. He jumped out of the shuttle and ran to the bridge. The door slid open, and he rushed to his chair. The crew was working hard. The lights on the bridge were flashing red. "Report," Mark said as he sat down. David pointed at the main screen. The black shadow was now clearly visible to the naked eye. It was at the edge of the solar system. "It appeared out of nowhere, Captain. One moment it was empty space, the next moment it was there, and it is moving fast." Suddenly the space station, Haven, began to flash its lights. Sirens sounded across all frequencies. Overseer Vex's voice broke through the silence. It was not calm anymore. It was panicked. "Unidentified vessel. Identify yourself immediately. You are in Council space. Stop or we will fire." The shadow did not stop. It did not slow down. It kept moving toward the station. It was like a predator moving toward its prey. "They are hailing it," David said. "The station is charging their main weapons." "Let them," Mark said. He watched the screen closely. He felt a cold chill in his stomach. He had seen dangerous things before, but this felt different. This felt wrong. On the screen, the space station fired. Huge beams of green energy shot out from the station's defense towers. The beams hit the black shadow. There was a bright flash of light. But when the light faded, the shadow was still there. It had not even scratched the paint. "No effect," David said, his voice shaking. "The weapons passed right through it." Then the shadow reacted. It did not fire back with guns or lasers. Instead, long tendrils of black smoke shot out from the main body. They moved faster than light. They wrapped around the nearest Council warships. These were huge ships, the pride of the alien fleet. The black tendrils squeezed. Mark watched in horror. The metal hulls of the alien ships crumpled like paper. The ships exploded silently, sending debris flying into the void. The shields, the armor, the advanced technology. It was useless. The shadow tore through the ships as if they were made of glass. Overseer Vex's voice came over the comms again, screaming, "Retreat! All ships retreat! We cannot stop it!" The assembly hall was in chaos. The calm and arrogant aliens were now running for their lives. The station tried to turn, but it was too big and too slow. The shadow was getting closer. It was not just a cloud, it was alive. Mark could feel it. He could feel a pressure in his head, like a headache that was getting worse and worse. "Captain, our sensors are going crazy," one of the crew members said. "There is a high level of psychic energy coming from that thing. It is screaming in our minds." Mark grabbed his head. He heard it too. It was a low, humming sound, full of hunger and anger. It wanted to consume everything. "They are terrified," Mark said quietly. He looked at the station. The Alari ships were running, but the shadow was faster. It caught them and ate them. "Captain," David yelled. "The station is targeting us. They think we are responsible." Mark looked at the monitor. Sure enough, a weapon on the station was turning toward the Vanguard. "They are scared," Mark said. "They are looking for someone to blame. Evasive maneuvers. Get us behind that debris field." The Vanguard banked hard to the left. A red laser beam shot past them, missing by only a few feet. "Open a channel to the station," Mark ordered. "Channel open," David said. "This is Captain Miller," Mark shouted over the noise of the alarms. "Stop shooting at us! That will not help you! You did this!" Vex screamed back. "You brought this monster here. It follows you." Mark paused. He looked at the shadow on the screen. It was true. The shadow was ignoring the smaller ships and moving with purpose. But it was not moving toward the human ship. It was moving toward the station, toward the center of power. "No," Mark said. "We did not bring it. But we know what it is." "What is it?" "Tell us." Ambassador Lin's voice broke in. She sounded terrified. Mark stood up. He walked to the front of the bridge. He looked at the screen. The shadow was huge now. It blocked out the stars. The station's alarms were a constant wail. "It is a shroud," Mark said. The word hung in the air. He had read about them in old Earth files, stories that the aliens said were myths, stories about hunters that lived in the dark between the stars. "A shroud?" David asked. "I thought those were legends." "They are real," Mark said. "And you made a mistake. A big mistake." "What mistake?" "What mistake?" Lin cried. "Tell us how to stop it." Mark looked at the camera. His face was grim. "You wanted to protect us. You wanted to hide us. You thought you were the guardians of the galaxy. But you forgot that nature always has a bigger predator." The shadow lashed out again. It hit the space station's main reactor. The explosion blinded the screen for a second. When the view cleared, half the station was gone. "It feeds on order," Mark explained. "It feeds on static civilizations. It smells your stagnation. It came here because you are weak." "Help us!" Vex begged. His pride was gone. "Please, humans, you have weapons we do not have. Fight it!" Mark looked at his crew. He looked at the destruction on the screen. The aliens, who had looked down on humans only an hour ago, were now dying. They were helpless. They had never faced a real enemy before. They had never fought for their lives. "David," Mark said softly. "Are our weapons ready?" "Yes, Captain," David said. "But our railguns are small. Will they work?" "They use energy," Mark said. "They use shields. But the shroud is not energy. It is biological, in a way. It is flesh and shadow. They use shields. But the shroud is not energy. It is flesh and shadow. Energy weapons pass through it. But physical force hurts it." Mark remembered the data he had seen on Earth. The shroud could absorb energy, but it could not stop a bullet. It could not stop a rock moving fast. "We are going to fight," Mark announced. "But not for them. We fight for ourselves." He looked back at the camera. "We are coming," Mark said to Vex and Lynn. "But listen to me carefully. We are going to save you today. But after this, you will never look at Earth the same way again." The Vanguard accelerated. The small ship moved toward the massive shadow. It looked like a fly attacking a mountain. The crew was scared. David's hands were shaking on the controls. But Mark stood still. He felt a fire inside him. This was what humans were made for. This was why they survived. "Charge the main railguns," Mark ordered. "Target the center mass. Fire at will." The Vanguard shuddered as the heavy guns fired. Tungsten slugs, moving faster than sound, shot out into the dark. They hit the shadow. Unlike the lasers, the slugs did not pass through. They tore holes in the black fog. The shadow screamed. It was a sound that shook the ship. "We got its attention," Mark said grimly. "Hold on, everyone. The fight has just begun." The impact was immediate and terrifying. The Vanguard shook violently as the shadow entity screamed. The sound was not just in the air. It was inside their heads. It was a high-pitched shriek of pain and rage. Mark grabbed the edge of his console to keep from falling. On the screen, the massive black cloud of the shroud twitched. The physical slugs from the railguns had torn through its smoke-like body, leaving dark trails of leaking energy. "We hit it!" David shouted, his eyes wide with shock. "The physical rounds are working. The energy shields of the Council just went through it, but our bullets are tearing it apart." "Don't celebrate yet," Mark warned, steadying himself. "We just made it angry." The shroud reacted quickly. The black fog swirled and condensed. It stopped attacking the station for a moment and turned its full attention toward the small human ship. Long, sharp tendrils of darkness shot out from the main body, racing toward the Vanguard. "Evasive action," Mark yelled. "Pattern Delta, move!" David's hands flew across the controls. The Vanguard rolled to the right, the engines glowing bright blue. The tendrils missed the ship by inches, but the proximity alone was enough to crack the outer hull glass. Sparks flew from the control panel. "Shields are down to 20%. A crew member reported from the back. "That thing is draining our power. It eats energy." "Keep moving," Mark ordered. "Don't let it touch us. If it grabs the hull, we are finished." On the view screen, they could see the remains of the space station. The Council ships were fleeing. They were running away as fast as their engines could take them. Overseer Vex and Ambassador Lin were leaving the system. They were leaving the humans behind to face the monster alone. "Cowards," Mark muttered. He saw the Alari ship, the one belonging to Lin, speeding away into the distance. "Captain, the shroud is focusing entirely on us," David said, his voice tight with fear. "I cannot shake it. It is faster than we are. It is predicting our moves." The shroud attacked again. This time, it didn't miss. A thick lash of darkness wrapped around the Vanguard's engine compartment. The ship groaned under the pressure. Metal screeched against metal. The lights on the bridge flickered and died, leaving only the red emergency glow. "We are losing power," David said, panic rising in his voice. "The engines are stalling. It is draining our reactor." Mark looked at the screen. The shadow was pulling them in. It was going to crush them and consume their energy. The aliens had been right about one thing. They were outmatched. The shroud was a predator from the deep void, an ancient horror. The Vanguard was just a small ship made by a young species, but Mark did not order the crew to abandon ship. He did not scream. He thought about Earth. He thought about the billions of people living there, unaware that a monster like this existed. If the Vanguard died here, the Shroud would feed and move on, and eventually it would find Earth. David, Mark said calmly, cut the engines, all power, shut down everything. What? David looked at him like he was crazy. If we cut power, we will be dead in space. Do it, Mark shouted. It feeds on energy. It is attracted to our engines. Stop making us bright. Make us dark. David hesitated for a split second. Then he trusted his captain. He pulled the master lever. The hum of the ship died instantly. The lights went out completely. The thrusters stopped firing. The Vanguard became a silent, dead piece of metal floating in the void. The Shroud seemed confused. The tendril around the engine loosened. The shadow could not see with eyes. It sensed heat and electricity. Without the reactor running, the human ship became invisible to its senses. The black cloud hovered in front of them, searching. The crew sat in the dark silence, holding their breath. The only light came from the stars outside and the faint glow of the Shroud's body. "It is moving away," David whispered. "It thinks we are dead. It is going back to the station," Mark said. "It will finish feeding there." "We can't just sit here, Captain," David said. "We have to do something." "We are going to do something," Mark said, "but we cannot fight this monster with just one ship. We need help, real help." "Help?" David asked. "The Council ran away. No one is coming for us." "Not the Council," Mark said. He unbuckled his seatbelt and floated slightly in the zero gravity. "Turn the emergency radio back on. But do not aim it at the station. Do not aim it at the station. Do not aim it at the Council." "Where do I aim it?" David asked. Mark looked out the window at the distant stars toward the direction of Earth. "Aim it at home," Mark said. David's eyes went wide. "Earth? Why?" "They are light years away. They cannot send ships in time." "We are not asking for ships," Mark said. "We are going to send them a message, a data packet. We will send them everything we have, the coordinates of this thing, its biological structure, its weaknesses, and we will send them one more thing. We will send them the Shroud's psychic signature." Mark walked over to the communications station. In the darkness of the bridge, his face was illuminated only by the green light of the radar screen. "The Shroud is a psychic predator," Mark explained to the crew. "It hunts by sensing minds. That is why it ignored the Council for so long. The Council minds are calm, ordered, and boring. The Shroud was not hungry for them." "But it came here," David said. "It came here because of us," Mark said. "Because we arrived. Because we are new. We are loud in the psychic spectrum. We are violent and chaotic. We smell like food." "So, you want to call Earth?" David asked, finally understanding. "But if we call Earth, we will just bring it to our home." "No," Mark said. "We are not going to hide. We are going to challenge it." Mark leaned over the console. "Open the channel." Mark leaned over the console. "Open the channel. Maximum power. Broadcast on all frequencies. Civilian, military, emergency. Send the data packet labeled The Shroud and attach a voice message." "What do I say?" David asked, his finger over the button. "Say this," Mark dictated. "This is Captain Mark Miller of the ESS Vanguard. We have engaged a hostile biological entity of Class Omega. It is feeding on the Galactic Council station. The Council has fled. We are holding position. To all Earth forces, to all Earth colonies, to all listening stations, this is a code red." Mark paused. He looked at the massive shadow that was currently tearing apart the remnants of the alien station. "Tell them, we have found the enemy, and we have drawn its blood. David typed the message quickly. He pressed the send button. An invisible beam of data shot out from the Vanguard, racing away at the speed of light. It would take years to reach Earth physically, but the subspace relay stations they had set up on the way would boost the signal. The message would arrive in minutes. On the screen, the shroud roared again. It had sensed a spike in energy, the transmission. The black cloud turned back toward the human ship. It had realized they were not dead. It was angry now. Signal sent, David said. But Captain, now it knows we are here. Yes, Mark said. He buckled himself back into his chair. Now the game changes. We have poked the bear. The shroud lunged forward. It moved faster than before. It was terrified, not of the ship, but of what the signal meant. The predator had suddenly realized that the prey was bigger than it thought. Power up the engines, Mark commanded. We need to stay alive until they hear us. I don't know if we can do that, Captain, David said as he tried to restart the ship. Look at the readings. Mark looked at the sensor screen. Something was happening. Something strange. The shroud was vibrating. The black cloud was pulsing. What is that? Mark asked. I think. David paused, staring at the numbers. I think we are not the only ones listening. The message went through the relay. But the relay amplifies psychic energy too. The message didn't just go to Earth. It went out everywhere. And Earth responded. Responded how? Mark asked. With anger, David said. Look at the size scale. It is off the charts. Mark looked at the shroud. The monster had stopped attacking. It was backing away. It was shrinking into itself. It looked small for the first time. Why is it running? A crew member asked. Mark smiled grimly. Because the galaxy is quiet, Mark said. The Council is quiet. The stars are quiet. But Earth is loud. We just connected the shroud to the mind of 7 billion humans, and for the first time in its life, something is looking back at it with hunger.